New Year. This is Danilo, and I want to make this video to talk about this tool that I've been using called Napkin, which has surprised me in many ways. First of all, it surprised me for its main functionality, which reminds me a lot of an app that I developed around 10 years ago for keeping record of all of the amazing quotes that I would read in books and articles, so on and so forth. And so basically, the mechanics there was that I was inputting or feeding those quotes into the app, and then I would go back to the app, hit a button, and I would get one of those quotes randomly to my screen as a mean to sort of like get inspired or reminded of something that surprised me in the past. So Napkin does all of that, but like much better. And also it has the amazing built-in mechanism of an artificial intelligence or machine learning model, as far as I understand, that makes associations between the quotes that you feed it. So other than just like storing all of the things that you found relevant, you now have a way to connect all of them sort of like automatically. It's actually a hybrid model because you can input your own sort of tags, but also then the app suggests tags that will then create these networks of quotes, and with some surprising results as I will show you in this demo. So here you see that I have the app as my browser homepage, and once it opens, I am shown some of the quotes that I have inputted into it. And it's curious that one of these quotes are actually about machine learning algorithms. And you can also see here that I've been using the app with two different languages, which is an interesting experiment for me. Um, I am a native Portuguese speaker, but I also engage a lot with English materials. So I've been just throwing them here to see what happens, and the algorithm is able to make associations between these different languages even. But I've heard from the Napkin team itself that the English is the language with the highest accuracy for the fact that the algorithm was trained mostly in English. But it's been fun to feed it in Portuguese as well. But back to my main interest here for this video, I want to talk about one specific tag, and you can see the tags here. So all of these are tags from each one of these quotes, and there is one in particular that I will pull out here, which is the conjugative thinking tag. There we go. And I will click this show all notes with this tag, and the app should change the interface. There it is. So here we have it. Conjugative thinking is a concept that I found while engaging with a fictional story by a friend of mine. I'm not sure if she created the term herself or if it was something she came across somewhere else, but it really stuck with me for its length, as you can see here. But other than that, for its the way it sort of like describes what I understand to be a combination of interpretation of life and unfolding of life. And so I've pasted the entire text here from her story, although Napkin itself sort of suggests or nudges us to be short. So there's this dash line here that is sort of like a suggestion for us to stay within the limit, but I've put the whole thing here and I'll leave it for you to read it if you feel like it, because to me it was a really interesting, really nice concept from her story. All right, so I've done that, and what then I inputted this quote out manually, right? I typed it, I created this tag, and what really surprised me was what came after it, because as I was inputting other quotes from other places, the algorithm began to use the conjugative thinking tag as well, which really surprised me. So here I have a quote from the book Dune. So it's a canonical sci-fi. Recommend you all to read it. And I'm reading in Portuguese, so I have it here in Portuguese and also the translation. Thanks, David, for this tip. And I would never associate this quote with the concept that my friend created. But after this suggestion was made, after the algorithm showed me this, I was like, yes, this is all about it. This has a lot to do with it. So that opened up a completely different layer of interpretation for my own experience reading Dune, and for my own experience with the story of my friend, right? And it didn't stop there. So there were other quotes that also got this suggestion from the algorithm, and this one in particular I really wouldn't expect, because this one is something that I've heard from somebody with whom I'm doing a work of self-development. And so here we're talking about the ego, stuff like that, and the algorithm for some reason thought that this has to do with conjugative thinking, and it does. Now that I look at it, and I look at the definition from my friend, and I look at this short but powerful quote here, I can see these things relating, and I can see how all of this sort of like comes together within this larger concept of conjugative thinking that my friend has added to her work. And the same for the last quote that is tagged with this tag, which is shown here. So the interface here already tells us what it is, which is a quote from a thinker that I admire a lot, Bayo Akomolafe, which talks a lot about sort of like the state of the world and sort of like where we might be heading. So he kind of like thinks about futurism, but he's very much grounded on his ancestral roots in Nigeria. And so here he has this very powerful quote, which is, if we beat the system at its own game, we've lost, which then relates to something that he says all the time, which is, perhaps the way we respond to crisis in the world is part of this crisis itself, right? So he sort of like proposes, and he is part of this post-activism movement. He proposes that we do things differently than we normally do to solve problems. Even this terminology of tackling, solving, and this is all encapsulated in this quote for me. And I would never think that this is associated with like ego and self-development, and then with things happening in Dune, and then with the story of my friend. But as I said before, now that I look at it, yes, I can see this. So this is just to illustrate the power of having like a trained algorithm to make associations for us that we wouldn't otherwise. And of course, this is not to substitute our own capacity to make connections, because I can make connections that no machine would ever do, and same for you. But it's nice to have this sort of help. And I say this because with this this very image that we have on the screen here, I now feel more equipped to write my own stories, which is a wish of mine, a practice of mine, in fact. And conjugative thinking, it's gonna be there, or it's gonna be in the story that I'm currently engaging with in terms of writing it, and with all of these new dimensions to it, with all of these new layers to it. The moment I read it in my friend's story, I was like, hell yeah, I'm bringing this to my own sort of environment. Also because we're sort of like doing all of this together. But now it has all of these extra layers that I don't think I would have like explicitly think of up front. So I'm thankful for Napkin for this, and yeah, I can only imagine what's gonna happen as I add more and more stuff to it, and of course, think for yourself what it would deliver to you if you were using it. So that's my experience with it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope it's something that you find interesting, and you can access going to napkin.on. And in case anybody's interested, let's just load here their page. Alright, and in case anybody's interested, the app I've created, which it's not on the Google store anymore, but it's, you can find here like a downloadable version that you can manually install on your phone. But that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and bye bye.